Evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to our latest opposition preview show here on Up the Cherries in All Departments. Following our 1-1 draw up at Craven Cottage, is back to home comforts finally for a game with a form team in Blackburn Rovers. Before I welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out a little bit more about what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, my special guest today is part of Rovers Chat. He is also the stato for the channel. So it is a pleasure to welcome on to the show tonight, Andy Watson. Evening, Andy. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Craig. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. And thank you so much for coming to join me on this opposition preview show. So, firstly, do give us a bit of a lowdown on Rovers Chat and what you do for the channel.
Yeah, so obviously Rovers Chat, it kind of does what it says on the tin. We chat about Blackburn Rovers, not Tranmere or Bristol. It's Blackburn. And as far as my role is concerned, I guess I've been part of the crew for quite a while. Really, I've done the stats show for Rovers Chat, which has been kind of my thing. Done about 62 episodes, I think it is now. Not done one for a while, so I should probably refresh that and do one for the new year, especially since we're going so well at the moment, as I'm sure we'll come on to. But I've written lots of articles. I tend to write the verdicts for the games, which comes out the day after the games. And I do a lot of player interviews. I've interviewed Jason Wilcox, Brad Friedel. I've interviewed a lot of the current staff, especially the academy, and I'm part of the Rovers Academy podcast as well, which we run on the channel. So just search Rovers Chat on Twitter or on YouTube, and you'll see a lot of our content. And we were Silver Award winners at the Football Content Awards this year, which was the first time we'd been nominated. And to get the silver was great. We're pushing for gold in 2022, though.
Fantastic. And knowing Ryan as well, I'm sure you get there. It's a fantastic channel, something that I actually subscribe to myself, not being a Blackburn fan, but it's got loads of great content on there as well. So you should be incredibly proud of what you've done. But as you mentioned there, Blackburn are doing fantastically well, 4th in the league. Did you ever envisage that?
Not for this season. I have to say, I wasn't the most pessimistic fan, but we had a lot of them at the start of the season, thinking that it was going to be a struggle, thinking that relegation was much more likely than promotion. It certainly isn't that way now, thankfully. I would have predicted us to finish in mid-table again, and it may still happen that way. But obviously, at the moment, as you say, 4th, flying high, a lot of optimism around, and definitely a strong identity within the team and within the club at the moment on the footballing side, that it's built around a young, dynamic team that's quite flexible. And I'm sure we'll come on to how we play and things like that later. But I think Tony Mowbray, someone put to me the other day, is he the most underrated manager in the Championship at the moment, and potentially even by his own fans, perhaps. there was a lot of Mowbray out, especially after the 7-0 at Fulham, and that was only 4 games ago. So for that to turn around to such an optimistic position so quickly is testament to him, his staff, the players, the whole club really, in that it's shown the players have shown so much character to come back from that record home defeat to get 10 points out of the next 4 games.
And I know it might be painful to actually recap on that, but we've drawn in our last game 1-1 against Fulham. Went 1-0 up after a great set play from kickoff. I think it was recorded about 6-7 seconds. I'm not sure. I haven't really counted it, but it was an outstanding set play. But they pegged us back. Do tell us a little bit about that game, because it wasn't all down to Fulham. It was, I believe, you had a sending off, didn't you, in the game as well?
Yeah, we had a sending off after half an hour. I mean, it was one of our centre backs, but let's not kid ourselves that we were ever going to get anything out of that game. We have this habit at the moment of going a goal down early against very good teams. We did it against West Brom at home, and we did it against Fulham at home as well. Shot ourselves in the foot early doors, and that just gave Fulham the platform to be able to play the way they wanted to. And they knew that we had to go at them, which obviously allows them to pick us off. And we had a man sent off, rightly so. It was a correct decision. And then what Fulham did that not a lot of teams do was to just carry on, was to put their foot to the floor and try and improve their goal difference. They brought on very young, hungry players. Rodrigo Muniz came on and scored twice. They brought Carvalho back from his injury layoff at the time. Neeskens Gabano was just on fire, as he was in your game as well. And even though he missed that sitter, he really it was a really tough afternoon. It was Adam Smith who was playing right back.
Yeah.
He was very difficult to control. So I mean, you guys saw on last Friday night how difficult Fulham can be to keep out, and you did a fantastic job of doing that for most of the game. Steve Cook's chest was the main player in the game. So obviously, when you're down to 10 men, that becomes even more difficult. And I think what Mowbray said afterwards, although it angered a lot of fans in that he didn't kind of front up and apologise and really take a lot of the blame for it, what he did say was that's something that we can learn from and put behind us. And a lot of these young players have never experienced that, and they'll never want to experience it again. And I think that's what has kind of been shown since that game, is that they have learned from it and they've grown from it. We have a very young team. I think, what was it, 23.1 was the average age of the 11 that played last week, and that would have been the youngest 11 in the Championship this season if it wasn't for Ryan Nyambi turning 24 on the day of the game. So you can't forget that once they have to have these experiences. Everyone has to have these growth experiences, and as painful as they were, and as painful as they are for us as fans, it's actually kind of been beneficial to the team.
And of course, in the game last season, it was the first game that we were back in the Championship, and we did beat you 3-2, but you did really give us a run for our money that day. How has the philosophy changed? And Tony Mowbray's been there quite some time now, and he is a good manager. You can tell that. How has everything changed at Ewood Park?
He is a good. So what I think what was the big concern going into the season is that yes, he had been there a long time, and a lot of fans weren't seeing enough progress. We'd finished 15th, 11th, and 15th in the 3 seasons back since we got promoted from League One, and a lot of people saw that as stalling. And because of his age and because of the relationship that deteriorated over a long winless run that we had last season, I don't think fans were seeing enough passion from him. I think they thought that his methods were stale. And that's kind of been proven to be completely unfounded. in the end, because we've become very much more adaptable this season. What I think he's realised is that because we don't have the finances available and recruitment has to be done kind of on a shoestring, really, is that the players that we have, we need to make use of in different ways. So whereas he is a 4-3-3 man at heart, wants to keep hold of the ball, wants a possession-based team, and that's what we were last season. But a lot of teams figured us out, sat in a deep block and just blocked the holes. And what we have now is a much more flexible system. You'll probably see us lining up in a 5-2-3 or a 5-3-2 against you guys. Whereas last season, when we went down to in that first game of the season, it was 4-3-3 and Adam Armstrong at the tip of that. And now we don't have that kind of single forward player. That doesn't work as well. So yeah, we've been a lot more tactically flexible. He has shown himself to make better decisions in play, which was a criticism that I had of him over the last 2 seasons as well. And yeah, his management is progressing. Like, he's actually taking on new things all the time, which I think for someone of his age and experience is always a positive sign.
And of course, you did something in your last game that we didn't do, and haven't been able to do for some time, and that's beat your local rivals, Preston, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that was the first time, I think, in 20 years that we'd beaten Preston at home. So, obviously, you can imagine the scenes. There probably wasn't quite as many fans in the stadium as we were hoping for, as our attendances are a bit down this season, unfortunately. But it was still great to get the result, and one that was deserved. Preston should have had a penalty towards the end of the game. I think we can all accept that. But in terms of performance, I mean, the elements were very much against both teams in terms of actual performance. But I mean, we only completed 40% of our passes that game. So we actually passed it to Preston more than Preston passed it to Preston, because they completed 57% of their passes. So you can imagine what type of game it was. But we have players going forward, you'll see this weekend, that have real quality. And it was one moment of quality that won the game, and there was another moment of quality from Ben Brereton-Diaz that almost made it 2-0. So what's been most impressive about us at the moment is that that's 3 clean sheets on the bounce now. And that's a really, obviously, a solid foundation to build upon. And if you're not conceding goals, then it makes it very much easier to win games.
And of course, you're in better form than we are at the moment.
Yeah. Well, in terms of results, anyway.
Yeah, most definitely. And after watching that game against Fulham, what do you think our main dangers are? Because I can see it, the thing is, most teams, if we play like that week in, week out, you know, we'll get a positive result. Which a point at Craven Cottage is not a bad result at all. But at the same time, we got beat by Derby. We got beat by Preston recently. We, yes, beat Swansea 4-0, but we haven't been in great form. Draws against Coventry and Millwall as well. So do you feel that you've got the upper hand, or do you feel that because of that Fulham performance more than the result, that we are still a big danger?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, come on. That game on Friday was probably one of the best championship games has been for a very long time, in terms of quality, in terms of kind of drama, things that you saw on the pitch. Like you say, that set piece move from, I think you'll certainly see us being more wary now of your kickoffs after that. But, you know, Bournemouth have got a fantastic squad. And fantastic individual players as well. Obviously, Dominic Solanke is going to have, I think he's going to have his work cut out. The 3 central defenders that we play, whether Ayala comes back in or whether it's still Lenihan, Van Hecker and Scott Wharton, all of them are physical defenders. All of them are strong in the air. Where he may have some success is if he can peel on to Lenihan maybe and outrun him. But you don't see that happen too often, and we will probably sit a bit deep, a bit like Preston probably did when they came to you guys, which could give some space to Phil Bill. And I think he's just shown himself this season to be probably a cut above this league. He should be playing in the Premier League. And that link up between those two, we saw it again on Friday, is something that I'm sure that they'll work on in training, and we'll probably try and get Lewis Travis. I don't know if we'll play another more holding midfielder in there instead of Rothwell, or whether we'll stick with Rothwell, but we certainly need to cut out the supply. And talking of supply, that brings me to Ryan Christie. And I think he's made a very, I don't know, because I don't watch every Bournemouth game, but he seems to have made a very good impression since coming down as south as you can go from the north to Bournemouth. And I think one of my mates is trying to name him Ryan Assisty, which is not something I'm allowing to let fly. But I can certainly see where he's coming from. Obviously, the quality that he can provide is clear to see, and that's another avenue that I'm sure that we'll try and cut off. Whether that's Harry Pickering or whether we try and get Scott Wharton to come out to him, I'm not sure yet. But it's certainly something they'll have to look at. But yeah, like you say, Jaden Anthony has come in and had a fantastic season. He's going to be, direct, but I think up against Ryan Nyambe, he'll find that a tough afternoon. Nyambe's hardly ever beaten one-on-one, apart from Neskins Cabana in that Fulham game. So Bournemouth might have to try and double up on that side. We might see Jack Stacey or whoever it is playing there, maybe trying some underlapping and overlapping to try and shift our defence around. So, I certainly don't underestimate Bournemouth by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's going to be you and Fulham. You've got to be wary of West Brom, but it's between you three for automatic promotion places. And even though it's only second versus fourth, I think there is still a bigger gap than that would suggest between the two squads, and probably between the two 11s as well.
And of course, we may have Jefferson Lerma back after his red card against Coventry. If you were Scott Parker or Tony Mowbray, would you be concerned about Lerma coming back and having a point to prove, because he is a very, very clever, flamboyant player, but of course he does get picked on a little bit by referees. And do you think Scott Parker should take out Lewis Cook for this sort of game?
I think the words of advice that I heard ages ago now was that you play your best 11 that's available as often as you can. And I think Bournemouth will want to arrest this form that you talk about and kind of solidify that second place again. So this is a big game for Bournemouth, and it's against a team that you say are in very good form. So if Lerma's available again, I think he'll be in the team. I think, it probably will be Lewis Cook that comes out. The battle, it will be ferocious in the middle because, a lot of our strength at the moment is coming from the three midfielders that we play regularly, which is Lewis Travis, Joe Rothwell, and John Buckley. And even though Rothwell and Buckley aren't what you would know as combative midfielders, they certainly need to be stopped, because if they can get into a flow, then they can, produce a lot of quality going forward. So bringing back Jefferson Lerma over Lewis Cook probably makes sense to me in that way. I don't think he'll be playing him at centre back again anytime soon if he can help it, but certainly getting him back in that defensive midfield position, or the pivot position, I think would make Bournemouth a stronger team. Not that I don't like Lewis Cook. I think Lewis Cook's got fantastic attributes, and I kind of hope that he would improve more than what he has done. But if he did play, I think we would be targeting him and wouldn't want to give him any time. So I think Lerma for Cook's probably a sensible move.
And of course, one player that has been spoken about in Blackburn's ranks quite a bit is Ben Brereton, or as he is known now, brereton-diaz. Do you think his performances and his overall game has improved since he got picked for the Chile side, which I don't think anybody saw coming?
The numbers speak for themselves. he was good last season. I think people do forget that it has been a steady improvement. It hasn't just turned up one day and with an extra name and taken the division by storm. Although, that is the popular narrative that gets peddled. He's shown steady improvement last season, and then obviously without Adam Armstrong being that focal point for our attack, then we needed players to step up. And to be fair to all of the forward players, they've all done that. Sam Gallagher has probably been underrated, and also has been out injured for the last 4 or 5 games. So his contribution gets overlooked as well. But let's talk about Ben Brereton-Diaz. Obviously, the story is remarkable. It's through Football Manager 21 that Mark, who I know, put his second nationality in as Chilean, because Ben gave an interview with the local press saying that his mum was Chilean, and that got picked up by a young man in Chile who was playing Football Manager and wanted some new players for the national team, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And once it was found out to be true, they got him into the squad, and he played in the Copa America and was fantastic, and is now an absolute cult legend over there, in doing Pepsi commercials and all that sort of stuff. But it has given him confidence. It's given him more experience, like going to the Copa America and playing alongside against Messi, alongside Alexis Sanchez and Gary Medel and Arturo Vidal. It's going to give you that confidence. It's going to give you that thought that you are a player, and yes, you can play at the top level. And I think you can see that. And he seems to just, develop a lot more pace from somewhere. And just a lot of confidence in front of goal, and that's made the big difference. And I think he's got one fewer goal now as Brereton-Diaz as he did as Brereton in 90 odd less games, fewer games. So it's proving on the pitch now that he is a bigger, better player that certainly Bournemouth are going to have to come up with a strategy to work out how to play against him.
How much do you miss Adam Armstrong, though, since he joined that lot down the M27?
How much do we miss him? Like, as a team, we don't. As a team, we don't miss him. I mean, I do think we'd be a better team with him still. But obviously, he dominated to our attack to such an extent that he took more shots than anybody else in the team combined, near enough every game that we played. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like a top striker should be taking the majority of his shots, but it has meant that we've had to become more flexible in the way that we play, and it's meant that we've found solutions to problems in that way. I still think that he's got the ability to make it at Premier League level personally. He shouldn't just be judged on what we've seen so far. I think Southampton obviously struggling to score goals, but they've just got to be patient and work hard and find a way to get the players that they've got supplying Adam Armstrong in the correct way. I think Armando Broja has come in and done a good job, so it might be difficult for Ima. But yes, we miss him. We miss him as a person, as a man as well. He's a fantastic kid. Just got married in the summer. Had a lot of warm words to say about Blackburn when he left, and as a player in the dressing room, I'm sure that the lads do miss his presence as well. But we found a way to score goals without him. I think a lot of people in the fan base were like, "Well, how are we going to replace 30 goals from Adam Armstrong?" And my response always was that you don't need to replace 30 goals. You just need to win. You just need to win football matches. So if we concede fewer goals, then that's another way around it, isn't it? So there was certainly a lot of panic, especially when we didn't bring in a forward on transfer deadline day as we were supposed to be doing. And I'm sure they will have a look again in January to see if there's anything that can be done there, because we possibly are one body short in the forward areas, and we do rely a lot on Ben Brereton-Diaz at the moment. So yes, we miss him, but he's no one's irreplaceable really, apart from maybe your very, very top players.
Personally, being Bournemouth fans, we wish he stayed at Blackburn, but
do you though? I mean, obviously he's only scored twice for Southampton, so I mean, do you really care? I don't know.
Yeah. To be honest, it'd be quite nice to play him next season, send him down, but hey ho. But talking about Blackburn's chances, so you are in fourth. You know, you're in good form. Can you keep this going? Can you get potentially into the top two? Because it's not out of the equation. I believe it's 7 points at the moment. And or do you believe that you can get through the playoffs?
Right, so I did see somebody say if we come to Bournemouth and win, then he wants a repeat of 2001 where we went up to the Premier League with Fulham. Um, I just think that that's taking it maybe a step too far. I can't see how we would be able to have the consistency to get into the top two and then maintain it. It'd be fantastic if we could. Don't get me wrong; I would give my right arm for that to happen, but I can't see it. It's not that easy for us to stay in the playoff positions, in my opinion. It's if you look at our actual data, we are overperforming our XG. We're overperforming pretty much everything, every metric, which usually means that you can expect a regression to the mean. At some point, you have to remember we've only had what 20 games, 21 games, something like that. So less than half the season has gone. So let's just see what it is going to be over a 46 game sample. Yes, we've got a game style that doesn't necessarily get backed up by data very often, but it's still the case that the likes of Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, even Luton have got far more impressive kind of performance data than we do. And I would personally expect Middlesbrough and Sheffield United to come very strongly in the second half of the season. They've got much greater wage bills. I think Middlesbrough will strengthen in January, having spoken to people at the club. I think Sheffield United seem to have turned a bit of a corner since their change of management, and they have a fantastic squad with a big wage bill, which usually equates to doing quite well in terms of points won. So if you're expecting those two to come into it, and then Stoke are obviously got a big squad and a strong 11. And Coventry have done well, although they're probably in the same boat as us, where their performance data suggests that they're more likely to slip away than stay up there. So, and then QPR as well. So there's a lot of teams in there fighting for it. In terms of promotion, automatic, it's only between you, Fulham, and West Brom for me. And then obviously one of those will drop into the playoffs, and that team will be the favourites to get promoted via the playoffs as well. So it's still a very long shot. I think it's less than 20% chance, maybe more like 15%. But that's more than a lot of people were predicting at the start of the season. And we've got to keep remembering that we are overperforming here, and to be in this position is a privilege. And let's hope that we can keep going. And I don't think we'll fall away as badly as we have done in previous seasons. I think we're going to be in the fight, hopefully, towards the end. And let's see if that can be, top six, or whether it might be seventh or eighth.
I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not a stato, so I just really go off what I see on the pitch. But I know that there's a lot more that you can look into. Do you think, based on our stats, if you've looked at them, are we meeting the expectation, or is there room that we could even improve on what we've already done?
So Bournemouth, actually, you're also overperforming your expected points total by a decent margin. But going off the numbers and chances created and chances conceded, you should actually be in third below West Brom. But that, like you say, it doesn't. It doesn't. Everyone knows it doesn't matter what the data says in terms of the past necessarily. It's nothing gets given out at the end of the season because you played well. It gets given out because you won football matches. So Bournemouth, underperforming your expected points, but that actually is, it can be a positive as well, because obviously you've got the points, the actual points on the leaderboard, on the table, without playing as well as maybe you can do. And like I say, if you look on the pitch, you're still you're still picking up points. I know that recently it's not been as strong as it has been, but maybe that's the regression to the mean that I was just talking about in my previous answer. And that means that you can just bounce back to doing that, to improving that, with the players that you've got. And I wonder whether you might strengthen in January as well. I don't know what's available. Obviously, Parker has brought in a few younger players to supplement the other squad that you had, from the Premier League days, which is a positive thing, I think. Certainly have contributed quite a lot, but yeah. So to answer your question, no, you really shouldn't be in second, but the fact that you are is actually a big positive.
And apart from the players that we've already discussed, what other players really stand out for Blackburn? And do tell us a little bit about the rest of the team.
Yeah, so I'll quickly go through the team. Like Thomas Kaminski, brought in from Belgium last summer, and has been, to my eyes, possibly the most solid goalkeeper in the Championship for the spell that he's been there. So he didn't play in the last game, but I think he should be fit for this one. Obviously, Ryan Nyambe is very, very solid. We talked about the way that the defenders line up. Harry Pickering is taken to the Championship very well. He'll play at left wing back. Lewis Travis, you probably know about him already, but he's just he's an all rounder. He gets kind of labelled as a defensive midfielder and a bit of a scrapper, but he has a lot more to his game than that. And he's certainly someone who will power that midfield. Joe Rothwell, in my opinion, is kind of a unicorn in this division. He can do things that no other central midfield player can, in terms of the way that he skips past players in the centre of the pitch and drives forward. And he will certainly need a plan to deal with him. Then John Buckley, who at the moment is flying under the radar, and I'm loath to say too much about him because I think he's our kind of crown jewel. He sits just off the front. And he glides beautifully with the ball, but not only that, he can pick out a pass. His weight of pass is exceptional, and he's also got that side to his game that he can press and tackle. So again, he's an all-rounder that can do a lot of things and do them very well, and he's improving at a rate of knots. And obviously, we talked about brereton-diaz, but there's also Reda Kadra, who's on loan from Brighton, who's a fantastic technician, really good at dribbling with the ball at speed, can shoot as well as he did. He scored twice now for us, both from the edge of the area, so that'll need watching. And Tyree Stolen, if he plays instead of Kadra, is just a pain. He'll never let anybody settle on the ball. He's got fast feet. He's not as quick as Kadra, but he possibly has more of an eye for a pass than Kadra does. So there's options there, and hopefully, if Gallagher's back, he can lend more of a physical attribute to the forward line. So those are the players that you're going to have to watch out for this weekend.
And how do you stop us? How do you stop us if we play like we did against Fulham?
Cut off the supply to Solanke. Obviously, he is your main man for goals. I'm not saying that nobody else is a threat. Of course, Billing, Christie, Anthony are all goal threats, but we're going to play this three at the back system, I'm pretty certain. So that does give us opportunity to be able to shut down a few more channels, passing lanes. We can probably play man to man on your wide players, and possibly man to man on Billing as well. Whether they'll do that or not, I don't know, but it's certainly something I would be looking at if I was on the coaching staff. In terms of the way that you tackle Solanke, it won't be down to just one person. As I said, all three of those central defenders, and it could be Ayala coming back in because he's just that little bit kind of more experienced and taller and stronger than Van Hecker or Wharton. So we may see Ayala back. It depends how fit he is. But I'm not as Solanke will do what Solanke does. If he gets a run at a goal, or if he kind of is given time to bring it down on his chest and get control of it, then he can cause damage to anybody in this league. But it's about cutting the supply off for me.
And finally, before I let you go, Andy, how do you think it's going to go with your head and your heart?
My head says 2-1 to Bournemouth. take a Bournemouth goal off from the heart, I think, and we'll go with 1-1 from my heart. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough afternoon for Blackburn Rovers, but it'll also be a tough afternoon for Bournemouth. Make no mistake about that.
Yeah, and I think it will be. And I think the good thing is we are at home. We At home we've not been too bad. We haven't been bad away really. We've been pretty good wherever we've gone. But it's good to be back at home for this one. And I think Scott Parker will know, and if we play like we did against Fulham, we will get a result. So I'd probably go with a 2-1. But I know that you can hurt us. I know that Blackburn can hurt us, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll be in the mix at the end of the season. I'm sure that you will be, considering how you've played so far.
You seem to have more confidence in us than I do, which is nice for an outsider looking at us. So appreciate that. I certainly do hope that we are in the mix. It'll be the first time since, obviously, well, I mean, we've never been in the mix in the Championship since we got relegated into the division in 2012. So yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good to be there.
If you had to pick your playoff, so if you said that it's us and Fulham that would go up automatically, who else do you think will fill those 4 slots?
So obviously West Brom, Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, and Blackburn Rovers, and then we'd play West Brom in the playoff semi-finals and hopefully give them a battering. Yeah. But I'm sure that's a long shot, but that's what I would go with at this present moment.
And to be honest, they have been suspectable a little bit. West Brom, they haven't played brilliantly recently, so they might be on a downward spiral. Of course, they did drop out a 3rd spot into 4th, but did win at the weekend as well. So no bones about it, they're a good side, but I think to be right up there, it shows what good side you are, and it's a dangerous game again for us. Really, I say ideally, we'd like to be playing a team down the bottom of the league, but we don't seem to do very well against Derby and Preston really at the moment. So.
No, and they obviously. I mean, Derby are doing very well to say that they are, quite certain to be, not quite certain, but they're close to being relegated. But, Rooney's got that kind of team spirit installed in Derby. They're very experienced in general, and they've got a sprinkling of young players. So, they shouldn't be underestimated. And Preston can turn up and make it awkward for anybody. Obviously, I would have expected you to win that game, and I'm sure it didn't go down very well in the fan base when the result was the way it was and the turnaround happened. But as I said at the start of this chat, these things are sent to try us, really. You're always going to lose games in this division. It's just a question of how you bounce back. And I think the performance was enough against Fulham to make you think that, they've actually, responded positively to this run of form, and run of poor results, I should say. And that, there's enough signs there that you can certainly get back to winning ways. And obviously you're hoping it'll be this weekend. I'm not hoping that, but even if it isn't this weekend, then it will be soon, and hopefully it'll be sustained. It's going to be an interesting battle between the 3 main clubs, I think, to win this promotion. I think Fulham are possibly a cut above both you and West Brom, and I think they'll end up being champions. But it should be a fascinating race in behind that.
And I would take 2nd spot all season long to get back into the Premier League. So, fingers crossed for us both.
Can I ask you a question? Do you miss the Premier League?
No. 2nd season, I guess we do, but no, not really, is my view. With VAR and the problems that caused, the Burnley game is a real pain point of mine. So, of course, we went 1-0 down. we scored to make it 1-1, but then it was pulled back for a penalty to Burnley. So from thinking that we'd equalised, we went 2-0 down. So no, I don't really miss the Premier League, to be honest. It's always a battle to stay in there. The second season, we finished 9th, which was fantastic. Nobody could have ever imagined that. But, it's great for the money. But is it great for fans? It's a very stop-start. Great to see the best players in the world, but the Championship is such a competitive league and exciting league. It's a bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of my point. I think a lot of people are pushing to be back in the Premier League, which is, almost like you're certainly going to lose a lot more matches than you win in that division from a club coming from the Championship. And I just wonder how enjoyable it is. We kind of need it for financial reasons, which isn't, to my mind, the right reason to need anything. But it'd be handy. It'd be handy to have a few extra £1 million, and it might stave off the financial fair play a little while longer and allow us to actually invest some money rather than kind of just keeping the wolves from the door, as we are having to do at the moment.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Andy, and thank you so much for joining me. And all the very, very best for the rest of the season. Hopefully, you can stay in those playoffs, get promoted. You might even finish second and we win it. So, hopefully Fulham go on a bad run of form, but it doesn't look like it, does it really?
Yeah, that's optimistic, but I appreciate the sentiment.
No problem at all, Andy. Well, many thanks for your time and absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Greg.
And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this opposition preview show. Please do remember to hit the bell, the subscribe, and the like button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Also, big thank you to Stuart Thompson, our guest for the Peterborough game, who sent this brilliant Valhalla ice hockey jersey that was mentioned. It just come through today, so many thanks for that, Stuart. It's absolute pleasure, and very comfy and very, very unique as well. So I'm proud to be the owner of that. Also, please do remember to check out all our interviews. Of course, we had an interview with Steve Cook, who has, of course, been in great form since doing that interview as well, with those 2 blocks against Fulham as well. So he's been a real star of the show and fully deserved his man of the match. Also, we've had Steve Fletcher, Harry Redknapp, Effa Cuckoo, Luther Blizzett, Andy Bernal, Beth Powney, and the guys from Fair Game as well on the channel. So please do remember to check out those interviews as well. But until the next video, up the cherries, and I'll see you then.